Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video in my FPS tutorial series. In this episode we're going to be adding another type of gun to our collection, and we're going to be adding the Gatling gun. And the Gatling gun works as follows. So I click and hold down the mouse button, and after a certain amount of time, once it's spun up, it will shoot out, and as you can see it overheats and cools down. Allow me to fire it again, like so. Okay, so that's what we're going to be making today. It's a bit more involved than any of the previous guns we made, but hopefully we get through it in good pace. So the first thing we need to be doing is creating a new gun, and we do that by right clicking on our gun parent and choosing create child blueprint class. And here I'm going to name it gun Gatling, and you want to open this one up and go to the event graph. Let's clear these three, we don't need them right now. And the way the Gatling gun works is quite similar actually to the fully automatic weapon. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy what we did for the fully automatic, for its start shooting and stop shooting, over to the Gatling gun. So there's the stop shooting going through, and here is the start shooting. Because the Gatling gun is quite similar really, the only difference is it has a spin up and it overheats. Okay, so it's a bit more bits we have to chuck into this, but essentially we have to copy this over like so. Now when we do copy it over, you'll notice that the gun timer variable is greyed out and doesn't appear down the bottom here. To fix that, simply just remove it and promote it back to another variable. I'm going to call this gun timer, and it should fix it down here too. Okay, so if we look at the demo I made and walk you through it, you can see how it works. So it looks really confusing, but it essentially isn't that bad. So when we start shooting, we're first checking whether or not we're overheating. If we haven't overheated, we're then going to set the charge time, so how long it takes for the gun to charge up or ready itself. And then we go on to start firing the bullets. And when we fire a bullet, we're adding to a value called current heat. And when it is reaching a certain amount of heat, it will overheat, stopping all gunfire happening. And here we have a tick event which checks what the heat is and makes it tick down over time. So a few bits to do. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on just the shooting. I'm not going to worry about the charging yet. We're just going to worry about just the shooting and the overheating. So back in my gun Gatling, I'm going to make some variables. So the variables I'm going to make are is overheated, which is going to be a boolean. The next one is going to be a float, and it's going to be called current heat, and that's going to be a float. We will also need the current sorry, the charge time. We might as well put these in now while we're here. So how long does it take to charge up? And then finally its current charge. Okay, we'll be using those two later on. But for now we just need current heat and is overheated. So here we have the event start shooting, and it's going to fire the first bullet and set the timer function to fire bullet. So we don't need to fire this first bullet because we've got to charge up first, so that doesn't really matter. The next thing we need to do is split this away, because we're going to check first of all whether or not we're overheating. So drag is overheated out and choose get, and we're going to check whether or not this is true or false using a branch. So if we're not overheated, i.e. false, we will then set the timer by function name of fire bullet on a loop. Okay, so this is directly taken from the fully automatic gun. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is change it so when we actually do fire a bullet, we change the heat that we've got currently. So for that we need to override the fire bullet function. So just type in here fire bullet, and you call the event add event fire bullet, and right click on this guy and choose add call to parent function. The parent function of that is the actual firing of the physical bullet out of the gun. Okay. So before we fire this bullet out, we first of all want to check again whether or not we're overheated, because it's going to loop around. We want to check after every single loop that we are not overheated. So check is overheated is true or false. Again, using the branch. Nothing new there. If it's false, fire bullet. Okay. So that's going to fire the actual bullet out of the gun. The next thing we're going to do is add the current heat value up. Okay, so current heat, drag that out and choose get. And current heat, we can go to set current heat. And we want to break that actually, because we want to add a value to the current heat. Now over here, I did some basic maths. I done the current heat, adding a value from the fire rate. Okay, it just worked out a nice way to change the fire rate, which changes how much heat is added. Okay, but you can tweak all these values however you like. So let's go back to our one, and here we're going to multiply this by the fire rate. Oh, not multiply it, sorry, add it. So addition, that will go to a multiply, and now take in our fire rate variable that we made on our parent, and we'll multiply it. Here I've done it by 1.5, but you can do whatever value you like. You just tweak it however you like to get the sort of feel that you want, and that's going to go straight back into current charge. After that, we'll begin checking then whether or not we are over 1 or equal to 1. Okay, so this current charge can go between 0 and 1, 0 being not current charge, current heat, sorry. Current heat. There we go. Sorry about that. So current heat. We're going to set the current heat, and we're going to check it whether or not it's 0 and 1. So to do that, we're going to go from there and check if it's greater than or equal to 1. But what might be a good idea between these two is to do a clamp. Now clamp float. A clamp basically forces a value between two other values. Okay, so this is going to check that it's only ever going to be lowest number it can ever be is 0, and highest it can ever be is 1. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that, and that will go off as a boolean, and I can just chuck in it's overheated set and plug that into there, because if it's not above 1, it's overheated, it's going to be false. If it is, it'll be true. Just save us doing a branch, you can just do that instead. Okay, so that's the actual firing of the bullet. We can move that aside for a second. Move it down here. And we're going to compile that, and we're going to play the game. So to test it out, go onto your first person character blueprint, click on their gun component, and choose the Gatling gun we are just making now. So as you can see, it fires. Okay. Now what we want it to do is we need to check the heat with a user interface element. So I've already made one here, but I'm just going to delete this one so you can see how to make it from scratch. Okay, so it should be gone now. Yep. So go to user interface widget blueprint and call it heat bar or whatever you like, and in here we get the widgets editor. So if you've been following along, this shouldn't be too dissimilar from the charged gun, but I'll walk you through it anyway. So we're going to delete this canvas panel because we don't want absolute positioning. We can type in a size box instead. Always drag from here to the hierarchy, don't drag it onto the canvas straight away. And the size box, click on it, we can override its width and height with values 300 by 50. And to make it so I can see what it looks like, I can change fill screen over here to desired. Okay, and all it is a progress bar, nothing flashy. And then I'm going to go over to compile and go to the graph. And all I need is the event construct. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the player character and cast it to the first person character class. And then from there I can access the gun component. I can get then the actor the gun component has been set to. I can then cast that to the gun Gatling, and I can then promote that one to a variable, the gun. Click compile, and you want to make sure you tick the eyeball on the gun so it's public, and go back to the designer. Click on the progress bar, and on the bind next to percent, choose the gun, and you can see current heat and other variables. Choose the current heat, and I'll make mine a nice ready colour, and click compile. With that done, you're going to go into your heads up display and just drag in from the user created section your heat bar. And just change that there to what we've done, and change its anchoring. So it's nothing new, we've all done this on the previous one about the charged gun. So when you compile this, you may get an error, and what this basically means, sometimes it doesn't remember that we actually ticked the little eyeball on our gun variable. So just tick it off, compile it, and compile again on the heads up display, and you'll see that error disappear. Okay, it just references this for some reason. I don't know why it ignores that, but there you go. Now click play. You can see the current heat charges up and won't let me fire again because it's now fully hot. So the next step is to make it so the heat goes down when we let go of the button and over time. So we go back to our Gatling gun, and this is handled on a tick event. So event tick. Now we only want this to work when the current heat value, so choose get current heat, is greater than 0. So when it's greater than, not the greater than or equal to, just greater than 0. Choose the branch. Okay, and therefore this tick will only do its business when current heat is above 0. Okay, so after that we're going to check whether or not we are overheated, because I want it to go down quicker if we are overheated, but slowly incrementally decrease while we are firing. So get is overheated, another boolean. So if overheated is false, we're going to do something different. Okay, we're going to do set current heat, and the value I've done for this, if I go back to my demo one, where is it? Here we are. So the current heat for this, I use that fire rate again, because then when I make different types of Gatling guns, I can make them cool down quicker or cool down slower based on their fire rate if I want them to. But you can tweak this sum however you like. But essentially, what you do is get current heat minus a value and plug it back into current heat. This value is up to you. So I'm just going to use the fire rate. So here I've done fire rate times 0.05, and that's just me messing around to figure out what sounds nice, or what feels nice rather. So get fire rate multiplied by 0.05 and plug that into there like so. Okay, so that's if we are not overheating. Okay, and if we are hitting 0, I want it to clamp it. Okay, so clamp. This way it won't ever go below 0. What I should do is put that on this side here, like so. Okay, so you can get the current heat, take away this value, clamp it to either 0 or 1, which in this case would be 0 because we're taking away, and set it back to current heat. Okay, now to do the other way. So the other way is slightly different in that we done the current heat as a different value, but then we go on to check whether or not it's true or false for the is overheated. So on the true here, on our Gatling gun here, we are now going to do set current heat. And the current heat is going to be very similar to this, so I'm just going to copy this. But rather than use the fire rate here, I'm just going to set up a nice value of 0.1. Okay. That's going to clamp it between 0 and 1. And then from there, I can do a little check whether or not it's less than or equal to 0. And if it is, using a branch, I'm going to determine that overheated is, not get, what's set, is false. Okay, it means we've run out. So if it's less than 0, overheated equals false. So we've got the overheating equal true over here and equaling false over here. So if I click compile and go back into the game and test this out, you can see the bar as I'm firing jolts around, okay, which is what you want. And if I keep going and don't let go of the mouse, and we need to change the gun bullets. Let's just change that. So click on the top component here. We're going to change the ammo it has, so 100. Ammo max is 300. Ammo clip size is 100. Fire rate will leave us that. So let's just test this out. If I click play, hold down the mouse, I get to the end and you can see it drips down, but the gunfire doesn't stop. Okay, which is what we wanted to do. So something's not working there. So let's go back down here. So if overheated is false, which it is, we're firing the bullet and then we're clamping it to be greater than or equal to 1. If it is, we're overheating it, and that should hit true, and that should stop this firing. So why is that not stopping? Oh dear, 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 dear. What have I missed? Let's have a look. Let's go back. Okay, bear with me. I'm just going to pause and I'll get back to you once I figure out what bit I missed out here. Welcome back. Sorry, I figured out what it was. The issue was that I typed in the wrong value here. When we done the tick event and you go off the branch at true or false to change the speed of which it declines the heat value, the top one on true shouldn't be 0.1, it should be 0.01. Okay, the reason why it weren't working before was because it was going down too quickly. So if I let go, if I hold on the mouse, you can see it just cools down and stops firing, which is excellent, which is what we want. So the very last thing we need to do is work on making it charge up. Okay, so the way this is handled is through a timeline. So you can see here my previous demo, we do a timeline. Okay, and that's essentially all it is. So on our gun Gatling, after you check whether or not it's overheated, we're going to do a timeline. So timeline, add timeline, charge up gun, we'll call it that, and double click on the timeline. So this is a simple, what we call an alpha graph basically. So I'm going to type in alpha, and I'm going to shift click twice. The last one will be a time of 1 and a value of 1, and the first one will be a time of 0 and a value of 0. The length of it will be 1, and it should look something like that. Okay, so this is what we call an alpha curve, a simple basic alpha curve that we're going to use. Now the reason why I use that is because we're going to come out of there and use it on a lerp. Now a lerp stands for linear interpolation. So if I drag this out and do a lerp, you see a float lerp, and that alpha should go into the alpha of the lerp. Now a lerp basically means it's going to go between two values, in this case A or B, based on whatever value the alpha is. So if the value of alpha is 0.5, the value of A and B will be in between those two. Okay, the return value will be between those two. So the lerp here will be between 0 and 1. So fully no charge and fully charged, and that will go into the current charge. So set current charge, and the current charge then is then tested to see whether or not it is greater than or equal to 1. So greater than or equal to, and type in 1. Oh. Create a branch and plug that in. So if it is greater than or equal to 1, it'll go true and start firing the gun. Otherwise it won't. Quite simply as that. Now this will go between 0 and 1, but as you can see, it doesn't actually take into account our charge time of the time we want it to take for the gun to charge up. Now when we created the timeline, you may not have noticed they actually created a new variable called charge up gun, which is a reference to this timeline. If you drag this out and choose get, you can get the, or set the play rate, set play rate of this timeline, and the new rate for this timeline will be charge time divided by, or not sorry, divided by, charge time should go in the bottom, and 1 should be typed into the top. So 1 divided by charge time equal the new rate. Now slow down the charger of this, slow down the timeline of this charge up gun. The last thing we need to do is when we stop shooting, you want to drag it up to the top here, and when we stop shooting, we're going to go and reverse the charge up. So now if I test this out, you can see it doesn't fire. Oh, it doesn't fire at all because we forgot to set the charge time. So click on charge time, and we'll change that to 1.5. Now we're going to test it, and you can see after 1.5 seconds it shoots our Gatling gun. You can see overheating and so forth. Now obviously the charge up time you would naturally tie up and link to an animation, same with overheating and all that other stuff, but we'll do animations at a later time, probably with a different series, to help explain how that works. But there you go, that's how you make a Gatling gun. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and if you like this video, please support me on Patreon. It's a massive help for everyone there to support me there, and you get access to videos 2 weeks ahead of time as well, so big bonus there, and then a Discord server. Thank you very much, and give us a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Hi everyone, if you do like these videos and you have liked what I've done in the past and want to see what else I can do, all your support is greatly appreciated on YouTube. However, I do have a Patreon set up as well where you can support me even further. Money donated by yourselves will help me make better videos and better content, and more frequently, hopefully. Plus it will help me develop my own projects. Currently I'm in a project at the moment and I'll hopefully be able to share that with you soon. If you do choose to donate and subscribe to us on Patreon, you do get access to videos 2 weeks ahead of time, plus there are many other rewards available to you too. So head on over to www.patreon.com/Ryan Laley, and thank you for all your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye.